Hey guys, it's Super here. So we have the brand new Spirit Beast, and I did some initial testing on the Spirit Beast cultivation event, but that isn't a really very good way to test. So now let's do some better testing and hopefully give you guys a more accurate representation of how this pet works. So from the previous video, I've kind of found a team which works pretty well, and I'll just show you guys some fights which just highlights how strong this pet is. So of course we'll start in PvP, later on we'll move on to PvE. So first let's take a look at this fight against Advantix. This is before he changed his lineup to have the pet, and this is basically one of the strongest lineups you can use before this new pet was released. And what you can see here is with the new pet I actually managed to win this fight. So the team I used was Apsara, Kayn, Nicolith, Boris, and Talis. And let's just take a look and see what happens so you guys can hopefully understand why this pet is so strong. So first off, the pet decreases the enemy turn meter and also increases the damage that our team deals. And besides that, we of course get the added survivability where if one of our heroes die, our Boris is able to get an extra turn and basically revive them for free. So what we're going to see here is his team is incredibly tanky, and this is unsurprising because he has basically max gems on every one of these characters. He probably has max echoes and max auras on them as well. He's a very strong player, and quite frankly, if it was an even matchup where we were using the same teams, I would get completely destroyed. So the only way I would ever beat him is if I have some sort of advantage, which in this case is the new pet you can see over here. So right now we're still pretty early on into the fight. This is going to be a very long fight because of how tanky his team is. And what you can see here is with his Talis shields, Hanya shields, Nicolith, and Unicorn, we are barely like touching his team at all. So the way we're going to win this most likely is we're going to deal a whole bunch of damage, and then because the way the Unicorn pet works is it actually records a certain amount of damage and you take it like 2 turns later. So if we are able to deal a lot of damage to his team, then Unicorn is actually somewhat of a downside and the damage recording will kill his characters. So that's exactly what we saw with his Kayn over here. We did lots of damage to the Kayn, and then this damage was recorded by Unicorn, which is good, but then 2 turns later the recorded damage kills him. So we're already winning, but we still have to get through all the damage that this, or rather all the shielding that this team has, and it's no easy feat. So it is worth noting that the pet itself actually does a good amount of damage. Of course, when he has things like Apsara Gem, which I think he might have on his Hanya, we can take a look over here. So we can, okay, well, he has this Ember of Eternity Gem, but regardless, you can see that he is immune to basically any damage which isn't direct damage, and that's just really annoying. So when our Calamity Bone Dragon is able to deal damage, it actually is a significant amount, or for teams which is susceptible to damage over time damage, you will notice that the pet damage is quite significant. Besides that, once again, the pet will reduce the enemy turn meter, and you can see we are getting these stacks over here, this pet icon, and it's going up to 10, right now it's at 5. And what this does is I believe it increases the damage dealt by our team. So if we can take a quick look over here, increases our damage dealt, and that of course is going to slowly add up over time. So let's keep going. And our Apsara here is actually about to die, so let's see if she actually dies completely. But once again, this is going to be a very long fight, and the main way we're going to win is by out damaging or dealing lots of damage, and the Unicorn will kind of record the damage. So if I were to use any other pet here, I probably would lose, and this is another important part to showcase. You saw our Apsara die, and then our Spirit Beast went off, our Boris got an extra turn and instantly revived her. So as long as our Boris stays alive, it is basically impossible for any of our characters to die permanently. So far so good, and I believe we are just throwing out so much damage. Soon we will see one of these other characters die. Probably the Lydia first, who most likely has the lowest HP in this team. And once Lydia dies, that will make our problems much less difficult because we won't have to deal with any cooldown increased shenanigans, which Lydia does, and any increased tenacity. So you could see if you paid close attention that the Lydia took maybe close to 2 million damage in one go. That once again is the Unicorn recorded damage. And now that Lydia's dead, the rest of the team will die soon after. So just a quick one, you know. Well, this fight is anything but quick, but after this, it should be much faster. So when these characters all take their turn, you can see damage recorded that I did. And same thing for Hanya and hopefully Nikolith next. So a very slow fight, but once again, without this Spirit Beast that we have, there's basically no chance that we would have actually won this fight. So the fight should be ending soon. And actually the recorded damage could be both from both the Unicorn and Apsara. I should have mentioned that, but yeah, so a pretty good fight. And now let's try another fight against High Traffic over here, who's a very strong player as well. So this is another player who regularly I would never ever beat in any scenario, and I actually haven't tested this myself, so maybe this might not even end up well, but you can see we are using a mirror matchup, but in my scenario I am using the new pet. So let's see how this goes. Of course, once again, if it was a mirror matchup, he completely destroys me. He has better gear, better gems, better exclusives, and so on. So the only difference maker we have in this fight is really just our Spirit Beast. And so we'll see how big of an impact that has. So early on in the fight, I would say um, there's not much to note. The only things, I guess, where it's very easy to observe how our Spirit Beast is better is by when one of our characters dies and then our Boris is able to revive. So that's the main factor or main difference between the two pets that we have chosen. And besides that, I guess our Spirit Beast will give us more damage over time slowly through this buff over here up to 10 stacks, and that can also give us the damage we need to destroy his team. So this is once again another slow fight because, well, this team is so incredibly tanky, right? And even if we kill his team, he will have the Serpent revive up to 5 times, so I'm really anticipating a very long fight for this one. But so far, nothing much is really happening. We have our Boris using his attacks. This is, of course, just as expected, and Boris is most likely going to be dealing most of the damage over here. You can see, once again, his team is basically immune to our pet's damage. So we'll need a combination of, I guess, Kayn damage and Boris damage to win this fight. And his Kayn is getting low. Okay, so now you can see that we actually have people in our team dying, and this should allow our Boris to take a turn, as you can see. So he has Nikolith's reappearance, so that allowed him to revive twice. So pretty good, but we're still down one character. Hopefully we will be able to revive that fairly soon. But even though survivability perhaps may not be the issue, I'm not sure if we have the damage for it. So let's just keep going. Let's just kind of hope. And this team, the team he's using, will probably be countered pretty well by some sort of Agatha variant. So I could be using this pet and then Agatha in my team. It will probably make this fight a lot easier. So unfortunately, you can see we actually did lose to him. And I think that, I guess, goes to show that this pet isn't an instant win kind of pet that we saw when like Divine Griffin first came out. If you're at Divine Griffin, you basically win every single time. This isn't that kind of pet, but that doesn't mean it's not strong. So just to show as well, previously I was stuck in Brave Trial over here at Advantix once again, and once I got the new pet, I used the same team you saw just now. Now I'm at Scallywag over here, I've completed him, and I'm just waiting for more tokens to keep going. So a very strong pet regardless, and definitely has its uses in PvP for sure. Now let's talk about PvE, and there's two main areas I want to talk about him in. First is Power Rift. So Power Rift, because once again this hero has crazy synergy with Boris, which means that basically you're gonna be immortal. As long as your Boris doesn't die, you're never gonna die because the Skeleton Dragon will give him a turn and he revives your team. So this is gonna allow you to, at least in these rifts, just simply kind of cheat your way through, and obviously that's gonna make it really easy. So we can keep going over here. And let's see how this fight goes. This one should be a pretty simple one because actually sometimes the bosses are in fact easier than the regular stages with like Lydia and so on. Okay guys, so the fight's almost over, and what I wanted to show you guys is Boris and the pet is basically soloing everything. So basically all our heroes is just dying every single turn, but our Boris stays alive, and then our pet gives our Boris a second turn, as you can see, and then he revives too. So every hero, for every one hero which dies, he revives 2 heroes instead. So basically unkillable, and well, that's how we managed to complete this fight, right? So it's absolutely insane in this area of content specifically, and I have no doubt in my mind that if I just skip for these next few stages, it's going to work without any issues at all. So there's maybe some stages, I believe stage 719 is going to be a difficult one, and I do believe that is one that we'll be able to reach today. So I will probably skip to that, and then we can take a look and just see how easy it is to skip over. So we are back and we are nearing stage 719, which I believe is going to be the difficult one. So I think that's actually this one. We can take a look over here. We actually just skipped through it, so I think there's still going to be one more over here. So let's take a quick look. And this is the really difficult wave, which like basically everyone struggles with across all content. So let's not skip this one and see how it goes. So the issue with this kind of fight is that the heroes all do a lot of damage. Jingle Bell, Donald Rebelli kind of disables your heroes. And then this team has insane survivability with Lydia, Panda, and Santa. So without this new pet, chances are we would just get completely destroyed unless like I manual it and like really focus on doing something really precise. But you can see we already had 2 heroes die and Boris just instantly revives them. So that's how I anticipate this fight will go. We're going to have our heroes die several times, but Boris is just not going to stop reviving them. And of course Boris, alongside Marie and Ans for damage record, all do very solid damage, which will hopefully help us get through the amount of survivability this team has. So Lydia dies, Boris revives, very straightforward. And it's kind of beneficial, I would say, for our heroes to die, of course, as long as it's not Boris. As long as a character which isn't Boris dies, Boris gets to use his special 4 for free, which does a lot of damage. So it's kind of a plus side, and it's crazy to say this, that our heroes are dying. So it's making this fight look incredibly easy. Jingle Bell is about to die, the primary damage dealer for this team. And once Jingle Bell dies, this fight should be really easy. So Lydia dies once again, Boris revives, does his double special 4, which is of course a bunch of damage. Jingle Bell's already about to die, we can see her health is just about basically at 1 health now. So she gets saved. I think this is from like Santa or something, or maybe it's just a heal. I wasn't really paying attention, but it doesn't really matter. Once again, hero dies, Boris revives. So this Boris and New Spirit Beast combination is just so incredibly strong. As long as there isn't something which kills Boris directly, you are never ever going to lose unless you time out from the fight itself. So incredibly strong combination, and any situation where you can use these two together, you should for sure. So we are simply just cleaning up now. Boris is doing all the heavy lifting here. We could probably just put Boris and one random epic hero, and I would honestly think that this fight would still turn out the same way with us winning. So that just shows how incredibly strong this is. So in fact, maybe let's do that. So we already know we're going to win this fight, that's for sure, because I mean, our hero dies, Boris revives. Once again, I've said that so many times. So we're actually going to exit out of this fight, and what I'm kind of curious and want to try doing is simply putting Boris in here with characters which are meant to die. So let's put some very weak exclusive 5 characters, and let's skip, and let's see if this actually works. So what I imagine happening, and that's exactly what you see here, is these remaining 4 fodder characters will just die on repeat, and that will allow Boris to just use his special 4 non-stop, not just reviving them, but dealing a whole bunch of damage. And this just, if this doesn't show you how strong this combination is, I don't know what will. And we have this one, which I'll do on my own time. This really is interesting. I wanted to show that other wave. So next, let's talk about PvP content or PVE content. So unfortunately, we don't have a good Planar Rift stage over here. For this one, you can see that we do need Phoenix Pet still probably is king, and this stage is dependent on having either Whale at exclusive 3 or at minimum Marvilla at exclusive 3, which unfortunately, as you can see, I don't have. I don't have Bobo at exclusive 3 either. So this is my worst Rift by far, and I'm not going to get any meaningful damage regardless of the pet that I use. However, for things like this direct damage Rift over here, I anticipate tomorrow we will see the new pet being used. I think similarly for Bleed, we probably will see the new pet being used. For Resonance, I think we'll still see Griffin because Griffin is used to survive the max 21 turns. For Poison, I think we'll see the new pet being used. For Burn, I think we'll see the new pet being used. Internal Injury, probably not since the Serpent pet buffs Felicia a lot. However, you never know. We'll have to wait and see. So let's talk about Wuthering Coast, and we'll just show, I guess, the best team that I have, which I think is this. I don't actually put too much effort into Wuthering Coast because there's no incentive to actually deal a lot of damage, but let's see how this team performs. So this is 138 billion, which is pretty solid. And now let's very simply slot in the new pet and see how it performs. So the PVE benefit, particularly damage-wise, rather than survivability, which we saw just now in Plenaris, is very dependent on the pet's equipment, because the pet's equipment gives up to, I believe, 60% basic attack damage and skill damage. So the higher your pet equipment, the more damage you will deal. So just now we were at about 138 billion, I believe, and now you can see this, just by changing the pet, we are at 174 billion, which is a very significant increase. It's almost maybe like 40-30%, so there's some variation because you do lose some survivability by putting this pet in without Boreas, of course, but you can see it's still a very significant increase. So similarly, let's take a look at Broken Land. So Broken Land, once again, this is another piece of content where we kind of just want to deal as much damage as possible. This isn't really even the optimal team, but I mean, let's just use it so we can compare two different teams. So I believe Unicorn, okay, we'll try Unicorn, Griffin, and the new pet. So for Unicorn, let's see. For Unicorn, we have 377 billion damage, which is pretty solid. Let's try Griffin over here. So it's taking its own time to load, but okay. Griffin, definitely the worst, 309. And let's try the new pet and see how it performs. So I believe the Unicorn was at 377, around there. Let's see this new pet. And the result is 408 billion damage. So once again, a decent improvement as well. So it seems like this new pet is going to be incredibly strong when it comes to content where you just want to deal as much damage as possible. And well, yeah. So final thoughts, I think let's round this video up. This pet is going to be very strong in PvP, that's for sure. We just have to kind of find the right team. You can see with Advantix here trying this Agatha setup. Maybe we have Frido here using a Felicia setup instead. So many people trying different things, and it'll be interesting to see how the meta settles. Maybe there won't be one specific meta, but maybe just a handful of different teams. But I do think this pet is going to be used the most for the meta teams. And for PvE, I think I've hopefully done a good job in showing you guys how strong it is, especially with Boreas. I think the demonstration of me clearing what is supposed to be one of the hardest floors, 719, with just Boreas the pet and random garbage heroes, it just goes to show how strong that combination is. And if you do have the pet equipment, which is important, it's going to be a very big damage buffer for the various damage related content like Withering Coast and Broken Land, for example. So overall, a very strong pet. This shouldn't be a surprise. The pets are always strong, but hopefully this gives you guys a better and more holistic idea of what it does and how it works. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.